Shalom, shalom. This is April Novoa here for Remnant Radio. Welcome to our show. Hey, Nitza, you there?
Yes, ma'am. Welcome. Good to see you again, kind of, through the Skype.
Yeah, kind of. Just this blinking face. Oh, well, in my case, a bear. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Good, good. Well, tonight I want to talk about vaccines. I think probably a lot of people in our audience, Messianic folks, may know a lot about this topic. They may or may not. They may have made a decision not to vaccinate or to vaccinate, depending on the amount of information that they have about it. But I kind of wanted to put it out there because there's a lot of misinformation, and I just kind of wanted to set the record straight on it a little bit for people that might be kind of, have babies or young children and are kind of investigating it and really kind of confused. I just want to tell the truth and then let them make a decision about the vaccines. So that's kind of why we're here tonight. I want to go into a little bit of the theories behind vaccines and why doctors, vaccinologists in particular, have an idea that vaccines are a good idea, and then present the other side as to why, they're not. So I want to talk about a little bit about herd immunity. Do you know, have you heard of this top? I'm sure you've heard of this, right, Nitza? The whole
Herd as in
philosophy.
I heard you as is a herd of animals.
Herd, herd as in a herd of animals, because that's kind of, really truly just that word. It just bothers me.
Yeah.
I get a little miffed just about that word. They consider us a herd. But anyway, yeah, I want to talk about that because the original concept of herd immunity really had nothing to do with vaccines. It was the idea that when a population of people experienced the disease, the natural disease, say, for example, measles, that over time, natural immunity in that population would be achieved. And that's actually really true. That the more people get it, the more they build antibodies to it, and mothers will pass on those antibodies to their infants, and so on and so on and so on. So,
Wait a minute. That's assuming they're nursing,
yes, that's assuming that they are nursing. Absolutely. That's a
not
good
using
point.
carnation milk
Yeah.
and Karo
Yeah.
syrup
And
or
Caro
formula.
syrup and formula and
Yeah.
GMO soy and all that other garbage that they're throwing in those formulas. Yes, if they are getting it from the breast milk, then yes, the mother is going to pass her immunity to that disease to that child, and of course some of the population will contract the disease and survive it. Measles is something I had it as an infant. I know lots of people my age that had measles as infants, and they did pretty well. In fact, they do better as children and infants with the measles than, of course, they do as adults. Uh, so it's almost like, as a child, you have kind of the ability to handle it a lot better than, say, an adult.
Now,
So,
do we need to qualify that also with nursing?
yeah, because if you're nursing and you pass on that immunity, then chances are your body, you won't get it. You're not going to, if you are exposed to it, you already have the ability to fight that off. So absolutely.
So
That
could it
that's
be possible that a lot of many children today don't have that added immunity because their mothers are not nursing their
I,
children?
I absolutely agree. It's, Elohim, our Father, He has placed a natural way for us to protect our children, and it is through the breast milk. And, unfortunately, a lot of people are making choices to buy, powdered or liquid chemicals and feed it to their babies. And of course, they're not getting the immunities, they're not getting the probiotics, they're not getting any of the organisms that are necessary to build gut immunity, and that's kind of where it all starts. So that's a very good point, and to make a case for breastfeeding is, there's a lot more to it than just bonding with your child. It really can affect the health of your child permanently throughout their life. So yes,
Yeah,
nursing
we
is
should
very,
come back and do a show on that.
I think that would be a really, really good idea. I can't stress that enough because it's not just, so you can be close to your kid, or or just to tie you down so that you don't, you know it's an inconvenience. There's so much more to nursing that a lot of people don't understand. So very good point and well taken. That is something definitely to mention. So herd immunity, basically, the population, experiencing the disease, there's an amount of immunity in the population, and that's very natural and very good, and the way that it's supposed to work. What the vaccinologists did, the doctors and the people that kind of came up with vaccines, is they thought, oh well, we can induce. Is that word induce? There's another word I don't like. we can all these words, I don't like them. We can induce, basically force herd immunity by vaccinating populations. And the problem with that is that it only confers a temporary protection. Um, the organisms, these diseases, be it pertussis, whatever it is, whatever kind of virus we're talking about, it gets smarter, and it starts to learn or change molecularly, so it no longer responds to the vaccine. So the vaccine that you're getting, say you're getting measles or something like that, is an old measles virus. So really, truly, if you were exposed to the newer, smarter measles, you probably would get it, especially if your immune system is poor because your mom didn't nurse or because you don't eat right or whatever. You could still get the measles even though you've had the vaccine, because the virus has actually gotten more intelligent. And this is what viruses do. And man seems to,
Intelligent or evil?
yeah, evil intelligence.
Sorry.
Yeah, evil, definitely evil. I would say that these are evil things, but they get smarter the longer they're around. They're able to they learn to defeat or to change to survive. Just like any kind of species learns to adapt. Viruses do the very same thing. So the philosophy or the thought that somehow or another you can produce herd immunity by vaccinating, it's really an error, because this is just another example of man trying to play God. We just think we can outsmart these things, but the reality is they've been around a lot longer than most of us have. So they're able to kind of overcome. So it's interesting, because if you study where there have been really big breakouts of, like, say, the measles or rubella or what have you, and we're still having those from time to time, you will find that that's a highly vaccinated population, which is fascinating to me. So obviously you've got a lot of proof, more than two witnesses, uh, that would shoot down herd immunity. So if you have natural exposure to a disease, you'll have longer lasting, more robust, superior, if you will, immunity, because it gives you both cell mediated immunity and humoral immunity. Humoral is the antibody protection. So the way you measure vaccine induced immunity is by how high the antibody titers are. Um, how many antibodies you have, basically, and you kind of, that's recorded kind of in your DNA and your blood. So um, this is a theory that is very much in error, and the truth is they know it. They have the studies to actually prove this, but for some reason, we're still immunizing children, pushing immunizations. I think there's more than 50 before you're age 5, and that's a lot to put into a child.
Right,
Um,
that's increased over the years.
oh my goodness, absolutely, it's tremendous. And
Follow the manna, follow the manna.
that's it. Follow the money trail. It's the pharmaceutical companies that
I'm
are
sorry, mammon, don't follow the manna. Follow the
yeah,
money, mammon.
money trail, and that's basically the pharmaceutical companies are making a great deal of money off of this, and they have no desire to stop it, and they've thwarted every attempt, you know, to do otherwise, which is to even look into studies. And our physicians, and I don't blame them 100%, but I kind of do, because you do have to be responsible for what you learn. We know that in this movement, for lack of a better word, we inherited a lot of lies, and as we've grown in Torah, we've come into more and more truth. And the truth is, the buck stops here. So we all have to be responsible for what we understand and know. But physicians, by and large, a lot of their education is funded, and I've discussed this before, primarily by pharmaceutical companies. So there's a real conflict of interest, and they're still, basically farming this stuff out to little babies. It's a scary thing. Um, Cell-mediated immunity is very important. Most vaccines evade cell-mediated immunity and go straight for the antibodies, which is only one part of immunity. That's a big problem with the production of vaccines. The body has to learn how to fight things off, and the only way it's going to do it is by facing it, or having it in some form in the body. Man-made bacterial experience with disease. And that's one of the key points of contention between those who insist that mankind cannot live without the mass use of multiple vaccines, and those who believe in mankind's biological integrity will be severely compromised by their continued use. So there's a lot of argument in regards to this, and people that do know better, but unfortunately these things are still being pushed. I think the thing is that we have to be good stewards of our health. We have to take responsibility. You cannot depend on a professional to always tell you the truth, or they'll tell you the truth, or maybe what they know to be the truth. Sometimes they, are just, they're wrong, and you have to do the research, and you have to decide for yourself. And I think we're just like, we go through the drive-through at the fast food restaurant. We treat our healthcare very much like that same thing. It's just, give me something quick and I'll do what you tell me to do. You're the expert, I don't know anything. But you're responsible for your child's health. You're responsible for your own child's health. You're going to be the one that will pay the consequences, or that child, if you're wrong. And there are a lot of consequences, and I want to talk about that real quickly. Now, the medical community, the CDC in particular, will take exception to this, and that's okay. And I want to say that I'm not a physician. This is my opinion, and do your research. Be responsible for your own choices. But there's a lot of autism, for example. That's a biggie. Used to be a 1 in 10,000 children. I want to say back in the 60s. We are now 1 in 80. So that's an astronomical increase in autism. And then if you want to even go deeper and look at, say, ADHD or other learning problems, that also has increased tremendously. There are heavy metals in these vaccines, all of them. And heavy metals tend to really be bad for brain tissue, especially developing brain tissue. And if you talk to parents that have autistic children, I have not met one that haven't said to me, my child was normal until. I've heard this every single time. Yet this
That's right. And here's the thing, the doctors and the pharmaceuticals, they are not responsible. They will not be responsible for what they give you, and you're the one who has to pay for it physically, financially, spiritually, and emotionally.
That's right. They are actually, according to law, not responsible at all. They can't be held responsible. There are laws in effect that protect them. There are no laws that protect you. And that's really important to understand, that when you have your child immunized, you don't have recourse. There are laws on the books that basically make them immune to being sued, and you sign papers that basically
That's
remove
right.
their liability for the injury that happens to your child. And I work in an herb shop, and I have a lot of parents, especially mothers, that come in. Is there anything that can help my child? Can you help my child? He's autistic. He won't sleep at night. He can't function in school. Their lives are a living hell. Some of them, it's not as severe, but some of them it's really difficult. And I hurt for them, but their children have been poisoned. And of course, we have things we can do to help. Slowly and safely. There are nutrients that help remove heavy metals from the body, and of course, we'll recommend those. But it's a sad thing, and I see it. I see it a lot, and like I said, I have never had anybody say to me, "I don't know why my child has autism." Every single parent says, "I know exactly what happened. This was a normal, happy, smiling baby. One day, we went to go get our shots, and then that baby changed." And so
Well, they've also linked it to SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome.
yes, yeah. Well, if you're putting heavy metals in the body and all sorts of chemicals in the body that affect the brain, the breathing centers located in the brain can certainly react to a chemical like that and maybe forget to do what they're supposed to do. So that's definitely plausible. There's a lot of adults that have issues as well related to childhood vaccines they received. And real quick, I want to touch on Torah here because as those that follow the Torah, it's important to understand that virtually all these vaccines contain things like gelatin, which comes from pork. They contain embryos, diploid cells from aborted fetal tissue. They testable things. The chick embryonic fluid. It's horrible. Some of the garbage that they actually culture these things in. Monkey fetal lung cells. I mean, oh, you talk about unclean, and you're gonna have someone shoot that into your child's bloodstream. I mean, it's that in and of itself just violates personally how I interpret Torah. uh, you know,
Right. It violates the laws of Torah. You're poisoning your blood system. You're putting unclean blood and unlike kinds of animals into
abs-
your bloodstream. So it's
abs-
a total violation. If you're going to get those diseases, Father's created these things, like the enzymes and the things on our skin and all these different barriers with our lungs and our immune system to filter this. And yet we're going straight into the bloodstream and putting these poisons in there so that the body doesn't even have the ability to use up some of its soldiers, as you would call them, to
right.
fight that. And we only have so much of an immunity bank. So every time you use or take a vaccination, you're making a withdrawal. So when you really need something for some crazy stuff they're going to come up with, your immune system is going to be shot.
That's exactly right. And it's really if you go to, I'm going to give you a website for those that are listening. It's informedchoice.info/cocktail-html. You will find a list of vaccine ingredients. I think it's important, if nothing else, that you be informed, that you understand what they're putting in your child's body. Read through each one. You'll be appalled. It's unbelievable
You want to repeat that, April? Informed
yeah,
what?
informedchoice.info/cocktail.html. So
Okay. And then there's other websites like VacLib or
yes,
Vaccination Information Center, VIC. There's some books. DPT is Shot in the Dark and several
yeah,
others that are
yeah.
available through some of those vaccination organizations. Um,
Absolutely. There is so much information out there. There's really no excuse for not at least being informed because it's not just a small thing. And I know it's difficult when you're in the hospital and you've had your baby, if you go to a hospital. I hope you don't go to a hospital, but if you go to a hospital, if you go to a hospital and you have your baby and they're pushing these things on you, in our state we have a religious objection. You can object religiously on religious grounds, and we do. Some states have what's called a philosophical objection. I think there is a few states though that it is mandatory, and please move away. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, I think I want to say Arkansas might be one of them. but you can get into big trouble for not vaccinating your children, and it's a horrible thing. And they really do. It's a psychological game that they play with you. If you ever watch the commercials or getting anything in the mail, and we certainly have, because we were foster parents. We had a lot of things in the mail about this. You're being irresponsible. Not vaccinating your child. Well, I'm sorry. I kind of think that it is irresponsible to vaccinate your child. But that's okay. We can debate about that. The one thing I ask you to do, listeners, is just learn about it for yourself. Don't take my word for it.
Right.
My passion, my opinion about it on nor Nitza's. Read about it and find out for yourself, just like you did when you came into Torah. Be aware of other things, because it is an evil thing, and we are responsible and will be held accountable for what we do with ourselves and our children medically.
Amen. Well, we need to go to a commercial break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Remnant Radio on the Messianic Lifestyle audio magazine broadcast, Lamb Radio.
Well, we're back. We're talking about being informed and making good choices about vaccinating or not vaccinating our children, and it's kind of been a little bit of a passionate show, huh, Nitsa?
Yeah, I haven't even got started. No.
Yeah, yeah, she hadn't even got started. Yeah, it is. It is a passionate topic, especially for those of us that know children that have been injured by vaccines, allegedly. Because it's not allegedly, but this is kind of what the position that our government agencies are taking, or we've been injured ourselves. And I know such families, and it's a difficult thing. It's something that if they could take back, they would take off their right arm just to take it back. It's a really hard thing to live with, and to have the medical community kind of telling you that they're not responsible. It's a little bit of a slap in the face. So it's a very difficult thing. It's very easy to get very passionate about it if you know and love people that have been affected dramatically by vaccinations.
Well, you
So,
know what's really sad, April, is a lot of adults are suffering from diseases
yes,
from vaccinations, and they just don't, most of them realize it. And this perpetuates the whole mammon system again
yes,
and the unnatural health care that we have. So it's not just about babies, but it's
no,
about what we as adults have in our bodies and the diseases that we're getting, that research has shown is because of what and how we have polluted the cells in our bodies with vaccinations.
absolutely. I talked to someone who is in the industry, and I won't give out too much information, but we were discussing it, and she is a medical professional, and she was basically saying to me, "You do realize that there are two within the chick embryo cells that they use to culture these vaccines, the ones that have the chick embryo in them, they contain two very well-known carcinogens." And she said they know that they have the literature, but yet they continue to do it. And so adult cancers can go back to, they can be related to these vaccinations. And most people are not aware of that. They don't understand how they got sick or where it came from. But long term, these things in your body, they don't leave. And what your body's going to do with them, nobody knows. And for some people, it turns into other diseases as time goes in or goes on. And the animal byproducts in and of themselves are dangerous, and they violate Torah. They violate what we believe. But the heavy metals, we know that heart disease, when you have heavy metals in your body, it causes cellular damage. And the body's response to cellular damage, say in the heart, if these metals kind of make it into the heart, and they make it pretty much all over your body, is to send cholesterol to that cell in order to put like a band-aid on that area. Well, if you have a lot of heavy metals in your body, it's band-aid after band-aid after band-aid. And so what happens? The arteries are narrowed, and then, you have heart disease. So, you could really make a case for vaccinations increasing heart disease, strokes, cancer, Parkinson's certainly. We know Alzheimer's as well. We know that heavy metals do play a role in these diseases. But this is all being kind of covered up and boom, you're sick. I don't know how that happened. And I think you can trace a lot of things back to vaccine and of course other factors. We don't help ourselves much with some of our lifestyle choices. But the heavy metals definitely are a serious issue. Embalming fluid, formaldehyde, and and some of these
Yeah, let me
things.
have some.
Yeah, I mean, good night. There's, just so many awful, really terrible things. Aluminum, ammonium sulfate, thimerosal is a biggie. I mean, that's really the one that they're pointing the finger at as being an autism, risk, or cause. I think it's probably a combination of all of them. But it's just a very sad thing. And if you're not passionate about it, get passionate about it. How to talk to your doctor. Say you see a doctor and you go in for a checkup and this gets pushed. All that you should have to say to that doctor is, "I religiously object."
The
A professional.
reality is it's not that easy. I know
No,
because I
it's
used to
not.
run a private school for home educators, and
Yeah.
we used to have to fill out our little form, and I would help mothers go down. There's a lot of intimidation.
Yes.
There's actual, turning you in for child neglect and
Yep.
abuse. So, this is why it's so important to live a Torah lifestyle, get healthy, learn how to use herbs and oils
Yes.
and food as your nutrition to avoid these situations so that you don't lose your children
Yes.
and their health, because
It,
it really is a matter of trying to stay out of the entire system if possible.
if possible, I homeschool. My kids are not in the system. And it's, that's a good thing. But when my children were in public school, I would carry a copy of the law in my purse.
Yes, you need to know the law so that
You do.
because most of those people don't know the law.
Right. Right.
They think that it's the law that you have to vaccinate in their states. They don't even really know. They never read
No.
the law. They don't, a lot of them don't know that there's the choice, and sometimes you just have to go and very nice and very politely just keep telling them, and maybe even carry a copy of the statutes. You can probably go
Yes.
online and get the statutes for your state.
You.
It's usually under the educational rules as far as when they attend school. And, they're going to abuse you. I'm telling you, I've been
Yeah, they
there.
will.
And you
They
just
will.
smile and you do what you've got to do and pray for a lot of protection if that's, what you have to do.
They will, and you've got to be the person that keeps the calm presence in that situation. Because I have been and treated. I have had school officials look at me and say, "Well, you have to do it," and I've pulled out the law and say, "Well, no, actually, the state of Georgia says I don't, and here's the law." And just very calm with no emotion. Don't get excited. They're not your boss. They're not the boss of you. So you just don't get excited. Remain very calm, pull out the law and put it before them. But yes, they will try to intimidate you. I had a funny story. I went to go see a PA many years ago for a physical that I had to have for being a foster parent. And we have to do those sometimes. And I'm not a foster parent anymore, but when I was. And she was going on and on about mothers who don't vaccinate their children with Gardasil and how horrible they were. And I was just very, very quiet. I didn't say anything. And I got my exam and I left. Well, that night I went to go. My daughter was attending a preschool at a church at the time, my littlest one, and so I went to the preschool to register her. And I had my form, my religious objection with me, and I'll be darned if she wasn't the one registering. That PA had volunteered to do the registration for that school. So I was in line and she pulled out the religious objection and her face just got so white because she had remembered all the horrible things that she had said about the irresponsible parents. Oh, if I had a camera, that would have been a good moment. So, I hope that, she learned something from that, that you need to be respectful to people that make choices that maybe don't agree with yours. I don't know, but I thought it was priceless, and I learned that they're just human beings too, and you don't have to be afraid of them. You don't have to be intimidated, and you are intelligent enough as a person to do the research and to make an intelligent choice for your child, for yourself, and you need to own that and do it. Don't allow yourself to get intimidated by them. And if you're calm, then they just kind of look stupid. I hate to use that word, forgive me, but they don't look too bright. uh, um, and that's kind of how I've handled it. And do know you can fire your doctor. I mean, you don't, if you have a physician that won't listen to you and doesn't value your opinion and doesn't think you have a brain in your head, you may fire them and find a new one that does. And there are a lot of doctors that I'm beginning to learn that are aware of this and are respectful of parents' choices to not vaccinate. And I've met a few of them. There's very few, I'll tell you that now. And it depends on the area, of course, the area that you're in. I see our medicine here becoming more and more alternatively bending towards that, and it's really nice. But you do have, it's like finding a needle in a haystack, but you can find them. So do know that you don't have to accept them being belligerent or rude to you. If you can keep a calm presence in the presence of a medical professional and be adult like and not let don't let them get you upset, it speaks volumes, and it may very very well reveal their character to themselves, which is good. We all need that. But do know that they work for you. You are their boss, even though sometimes it feels like they're yours. And you can certainly tell them that, I don't think you're going to be working for me anymore. I'm going somewhere else. And that's okay. I wanted to say that because sometimes I really feel like parents or just people in particular are very intimidated by quote unquote professionals. Professionals can and are wrong, and can be wrong, and they are wrong a lot. And it's okay to question, and it's okay to not agree. So I want you to understand that, because it took me a lot of years to get to that point. I used to work in medicine. I worked in medicine for a lot of years, and I really thought going into it as a young person that those in the medical community hung the moon, that they had all the answers. And having worked in that field, I found them to be just as human and just as fallible as anyone else. And
Right. And I think that that would really actually go back to your herd mentality.
yes, yeah, because that word too is such a disrespectful word to begin with. It's communicating that people are just animals, and they're not people, and they don't have the ability to make wise choices, and or to think or to pray about something, or to be led of the spirit in their choices. And that is really the new world order philosophy, is that people are just bugs or animals to be herded. And I'm sorry, I refuse to be included in that, or called part of the herd, or treated like I'm just a number. I won't do it.
Right.
When
Well,
it
and we have to understand, the all of these people, including a lot of us, and I don't know how Father saw fit for us to come out, but they've all been trained under this system of education so
Yes.
that they all follow the herd to run off the cliff.
Yes.
And that is part of the big problem. And they're just so trained. They just don't even know better. And the ones that do, those are the ones you really need to pray for, because they want to come after you. They're not even happy to leave you alone.
Yes, I think it was Dr. Mendelsohn. He wrote a book called How to Raise a Healthy Child in Spite of Your Doctor. I highly recommend it.
Yes, very good book.
Very good book, and he called it a church, a cult that
Mm.
medicine. And he's right. He's right. I've been part of it. I understand what that is. And it is a um, indoctrination that takes place because they're really just regurgitating uh, the things that have been, pounded into their head. Not that they really know it to be true necessarily, but they believe it to be true because that's what they were told. And doesn't that sound familiar? I mean, we came out of that. That was,
Right, right,
that it's that same pervasive, I believe it because someone else told
right.
me
That's what we've
that.
taught.
Yep,
Can I share something with you?
absolutely. Please do.
After my second daughter was born, I had a 4.5-year-old, and then I had a newborn daughter. I had two daughters. And when that second daughter was about 6 weeks old, and I noticed that my first daughter was very healthy until she started getting her vaccinations.
Mm,
Um, but we'll skip to the second one. After the second one, I took her in. I remember I was very distressed that day. I didn't really know why, because you have to understand I'm an Air Force brat. So
mm-hmm.
I got every shot there ever was and probably
Oh,
more.
right.
So to me, you got vaccinated because you're trying to protect yourself and you're trying to protect your children. And so I took my daughter in for her first oral DPT, the second daughter, and I was very distressed. And even though it was oral, she was crying. And I got back to where I was staying. I actually took her to work with me at that time. And
Hello?
this is how Father opened my eyes. He
Uh-huh.
asked me, "Why did you do that?" And
Yeah.
I was like, because, I want to protect my daughter from pertussis, and, it's the right thing to do. And
Right.
so then he asked me a question. He said, "Is it okay with you if she dies from pertussis? I numbered the hair on her heads and I've numbered her days. Is that okay with you?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, well, I've surrendered everything. That's kind of the idea. So, yes, absolutely. The
Wow.
next day, a lady walked into the office where I was working. I'd only seen her once, barely met her at a La Leche meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And she walked in the door and she said to me, "Do you vaccinate your children?" And I was like, what an absurd question. I'd never heard of such a thing. And I
Yeah.
said, well, as of yesterday, no. She said, well, I want you to read this book. And she gave me a book called DPT, A Shot in the Dark. I
Mm.
took it home and I could not get past the first couple of chapters. I could not believe that the doctors weren't keeping track of this. They're not recording this. They're not doing quality batch checks. I mean, there was just so much in this book. And the first few chapters, I was shocked
Yes.
that people never question these things. And so that's really how I began to get to the point where, I didn't understand it from a biblical point of view at the time. I do
Right.
now, Torah. But so I am very, and I don't really want to argue with the doctor on the science because to
Right.
me, it is purely a relationship between me and him. And he said, don't. And now I can give you
Yes.
lots of reasons with the Torah not to. And,
Yes.
um, I don't want my children and my family, and we have suffered.
Yes.
I have myself, and I believe that scoliosis in particular is rooted to viruses given
Mm-hmm.
through vaccinations. So
Mm.
it's something that people really need to stop because I know a lot of people think they're doing the right thing to protect their children.
Yeah. They believe the narrative that's being spread. And you're right. You do not and you should not argue with your doctor. He shouldn't argue with you. You're the parent. Know your rights.
Yeah. Well, we'll be right back after this short break.
You are listening to the Remnant Radio Show on the Messianic Lifestyle audio magazine broadcasts. Lamb Radio.
Well, welcome back. Welcome back. We're talking about vaccines. We've been discussing the ingredients, some of the ingredients. I mean, I can't. It would take me all night to sit here and go through every single ingredient. Heavy metals, animal byproducts, human cells. That's that should be a red flag. Human
Yeah, really.
embryo cells. I mean, golly, that is just detestable. It's horrible. So I won't go through all those. I will tell you to please go to www.informedchoice.info/cocktail.html. And just that's one site. There's tons. You go on the web and you start to do some research. You're going to find even more. I like the web for that reason because you really can learn a lot and you really can get a lot of different opinions. Um, and I did want to mention that you can actually do some research. The Gardasil thing's been pushed, pushed, pushed. There's been like a huge campaign to push this and how irresponsible it is if you don't have your daughters and now sons. They're actually going to do it to boys now too, vaccinated with the Gardasil vaccine.
Now, wait a
Uh,
minute. Let's back up. First of all, you're saying Giarda or Giarda?
Giarda, depending on how you want to pronounce that.
Okay, and let's educate because I know some people might not know what that is.
Well, that is a vaccine against the HPV virus, which is the virus that they have said causes cervical cancer. Now, that not all HPV causes cervical cancer. It's human papilloma virus. But and this particular vaccine doesn't even vaccinate against some of those that do. So it's a real sketchy thing. There have been a lot of injuries from this vaccine in particular, and deaths even. And you can actually, and I've done this, it's been quite some time, you can go on the CDC website and kind of get the ER reports or the hospital reports of some of these injuries. You can find them online. I can't give you that address right now because I haven't been on there in a while, but this is a scary one. It has radically forever changed the lives of some young women that now function with some severe disabilities. And, um, you know, you would think from the commercials that it's the most responsible thing you can do. Again, it's just a hypnotic indoctrination to, do something that's harmful, people are innocently doing. So that's one that I would really recommend that you look into and read up on and come into an understanding of what is in this vaccine and what it can potentially do to your body.
Well, April, it seems to me that a lot of the vaccinations and the purposes, especially for this one, has to do with the fact that people don't want to live clean, set apart lives and
That's
obey the
right.
commandments that Yahweh's given us. So man thinks that, and and they sell it to us as a people that, hey, you can go ahead and do whatever you want. You can avoid,
Right.
sickness and death and sin. And, really that's the reason why a lot of people accept measures of birth control that are not healthy also,
Yes.
along with the vaccinations. So, a lot of it has to do with, you know,
Our own
yes,
sin.
some innocent
Yeah.
people get things, but as a whole, we would not get a lot of these problems if we just lived
hmm
clean lives.
I agree. It's a pervasive attitude about being irresponsible. It's okay to it's how we think about, it's okay to eat irresponsibly because I'll just take a cholesterol lowering drug. It's okay to not exercise or not, control my stress because I'll just take this and I'll pop that. And, this is something, this particular attitude that has made this vaccine popular and possible is pervasive and it kind of hits everything, really. You were talking earlier about nursing. I mean, it's the same thing. I don't want to mess with that. I don't have time. Whatever. I'll just buy a can of powdered stuff off the shelf, and that'll be good enough. Well, these things have long term. When we go outside of Father's directions, His instructions for life, and we do something our own way, there's going to be
Hmm.
trouble down the road. I mean, and that really is the bottom line. It's like and it really is also about fear. It's like an insurance policy. I've got to do this because I'm afraid of this or that disease. Well, who are you going to fear? Really?
Right. It's not a fear of Yahweh and what will happen. I
No.
mean, he's not going to be mocked. There are going to be and are long-term and short-term consequences from all of those things.
That's that
You
that's right. It's you have to decide who you're going to serve. As for me and my family, we are going to serve. We're going to serve Yahweh, and so it really boils down to really having confidence in Him and trusting Him. So when that you talk to that doctor or that school official or that other mom that thinks that your brains have rolled out of your head because you're not going to vaccinate, be bold in our Elohim. Be bold.
know,
It, and this is what we're doing. You don't have to go into some lengthy scientific discussion. And believe me, they'll try that with you. But
yes,
you
they
just say,
will.
you know what? I know my rights. I know what the law says. I know we're not supposed to be having this conversation because this is about my religion. And I have decided, and you can use that word. This is, about my religion. This is what I've decided. So I don't think that this conversation is appropriate. This is something that we have decided. Be bold. Be brave. Be the protector of your family. Don't back down and don't be afraid of people because they have several initials behind their name. They're just
Right.
people just like you. And
And don't fall for some of the schemes. In Florida, when you get that little exemption card, they've changed it over the years. Who knows what it looks like now? But they changed it so that you had to put on there what member of what church you were.
oh good
Well, and then it further goes to say that my church endorses this. Well, first of all, we are the church. We're the Living Stones. And second of all, my relationship with the Father has nothing in a way to do with the building or the organization that I may attend.
that's
And they
right.
will try to say, they'll try to lock you into that, like, well, you're not a member of, you know,
Right.
some organization or church with a 501(c) behind it that says you can and can't and are promoting it. So you've really got to be wise and be as innocent.
Yes.
Well, actually, it's wise as a serpent and innocent and harmless in that New Testament, renewed Testament.
Yeah.
Scripture
Yeah.
actually means to be unmixed.
Exactly. And I'm not saying be disrespectful. Don't be
Yeah.
disrespectful. There's no reason to go there. We still are representing Yeshua. Okay? So we still need to be polite, but you can be firm and respectful at the same time. And know your rights and be prepared to make sure that they understand you know your rights. I mean, I was told when I went to the school and I knew better, well, you're required to do this. And I said, not according to this. And they couldn't say anything after that. It was the conversation was over at that point. And if
Right.
you
And you could even look at it as the fact that, you might be talking to someone who Father wants to deliver and have him come out. So do it with
that's
love
right.
and kindness as much as you can.
That's exactly right. And explain it the best you can. I wouldn't argue with a doctor. I mean, look, don't get into vain arguments. Scripture says do not participate in vain arguments. What's a vain argument? A vain argument is arguing for the sake of being right. That's
Oh,
that's not a that's not a reason to argue with anybody. So arguing is just not acceptable. Discussion, yes. Arguing, no. If somebody wants to argue with you, there's no point. You just be firm and say this is what we believe. I'm sorry you feel that way, and leave it at that. It's fairly simple. So I just want to encourage people: do your research. Don't listen to me. Uh, necessarily confirm what I've said or dispute it. Feel free. But you need to do your homework and just to be aware and know what's going on, know what's happening to people, pay attention, be alert, be a watchman. Do
amen.
so.
Do you want to
Anyway,
give out some of those websites again, information where people can go to get more information?
yes, there's a website called VaxLib, which you mentioned earlier. Informed Choice. It's www.informedchoice.info/cocktail.html. And this particular one is very specific as to ingredients in vaccines. It's 5 pages long. It's very long, but I would encourage you just to read through there and get an idea of what's in them, and then be prepared to make an educated choice based on Torah primarily, and also just common sense, because common sense, looking at this, I don't know how you could choose to do it, but that's my personal opinion. So that's
And I
one.
believe VacLib, VACLIB,
Mm-hmm.
is that vaclib.com? Or I think
Backlib.com.
it's like .org. I believe they also will send out free cards for you to pass out on educate before you vaccinate with some of the ingredients in some of the vaccinations.
Definitely.
So,
And you can also print out the laws, each state law there, and you can print out the objection forms for your particular state. That's where I got mine. So you can print those things out, and they're all set up for you, which is fabulous. So just print them
all
out
right.
and use them.
All righty. Well, thank you. It's time for us to leave. And thank you, April.
Well, thank you, Nitza. I always enjoy talking to you. Blessings and shalom to everyone out there in our Messiah Yeshua.
Amen. Shalom.
I am in love with a man who placed a banner over me. He is in love with me.
We have this total misconception of what meek means because it's almost the same as the word weak, but they're nothing alike. Yeshua was meek. He was power. He had the full power of God, but it was under control. He did nothing unless he saw the Father doing it first. And oh, if we were only able to do that, brethren, if we were only able to be like Yeshua and do nothing unless we saw the Father doing it first, do you know how many mistakes that we could avoid? Do you know how many things that I could have avoided over the years if I hadn't run headstrong and gone in my own strength? And there are certain areas that I am strong in. But when I do it in my own strength, it's usually counter to what God wants, because if I'm doing it in my own strength, that means I'm satisfying my own flesh. And a leader can't do that. A leader may be able to, and this is one of the lessons that the Lord has been teaching me over the last little while, is that if someone does something wrong and they're irritating, that I can't take out my irritation on the people. I can take it to God. I can go and I can drop on my face. I can go down and I can hit my punching bag or do push-ups or, go for a long walk or bike ride or something like that. But I can't take it out on the sheep, because then that means I'm, satisfying my own flesh. Discipline can be applied without getting into the flesh. Order can be applied without getting into the flesh. And that's by recognizing, number one, who we serve, which is God, and doing it in his strength, having an attitude of meekness and humility. Those are the keys to success in any leadership situation, because we have to understand that as a leader, we're here to serve. The Son of Man did not come to serve, but to be served, not to be served, but to serve.
are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.
Don't go away, your show will start after a brief pause.